Hello, welcome everyone. So today we're talking about account-based marketing. There's been a lot of conversation recently about, is it fact, is it fluff, does it really work, what's the return on investment, and what does account-based marketing look like 5 years from now? So we'll be trying to answer all of those questions today with our panelists. We have today Ralph Varco from Accelerate Performance giving us a short presentation on the principles of account-based marketing and his view, quite a thought-provoking view, on what it means for businesses today. Then we'll be joined by Jessica Pine from Salesforce and Carmen Onisasiaco from Unity Technologies, who will be sharing their experiences of applying ABM to their businesses. So welcome to Ralph, first of all, from his very fancy studio. And I'm going to hand it over to you to give a short presentation and your thoughts.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the introduction. So yes, I am Ralph Varco and I am the managing partner of Accelerate Performance. And I'm just going to give you about 10 minutes worth of my view around account-based marketing. So back in the dawn of time, there is time along the page, we had the net cast wide, marketing to everyone and anyone. We have great products, we have great services, so let's just cast our net out there and let's see who buys it. And people will, and people came. And so things were good, and there were sales that were made. But then things had to evolve because there were so many organizations that were out there that were pushing lots of stuff out to the market and pushing out to a market of everyone. And the problem with the market of everyone is that not actually everybody wants what you're trying to offer. So the evolution, once it went to the next stage, was to segment the market and to decide who is in that target market. Because imagine this, you have something that you want to sell. I don't know, imagine that it's vegan sausages. You could sell vegan sausages and you could pull everybody into your shop. But there's probably only a few people that are going to come into your shop that are going to want the vegan sausages. Tasty though they may be, not everybody's into vegan sausages. So you start to look at and segment the market and go, well, who are the people that are going to want my vegan sausages? And you start to talk to them. So you know what your market looks like, and you then start to look at, in the case of business, what are the accounts that you want as customers? So you know the segment you're going after, you then decide you know which accounts within that segment that you want to market your product to. It evolved to the next stage, and that stage was to market to the buyer personas. So here's the view. The view is that every CIO has got a similar challenge to every other CIO. Every media buyer has the same kind of challenge as every other media buyer. And so you decide that you're going to pull together a view about what does the average normal CIO or media buyer or CTO or whoever it happens to be, what do they kind of look like? And this is a good thing because it means that you can drive your message through to that persona, knowing what they need in general, and then you can apply that to the account and to the segment that you're going into. And that is what we would call account-based marketing, knowing which market, which accounts, and then targeting the personas in those accounts. What I like to think of is that actually in today's world, it's not really account-based marketing, it's actually called doing marketing properly. So the evolved organizations are the ones that are doing this, and it has become the norm. Know what your market is, know who your customers are, know who the personas are that you're trying to sell to. But once upon a time when everybody was just marketing everything to everyone, it became ubiquitous and it was incredibly noisy. So the evolved companies went and they did account-based marketing. But now so many companies are doing account-based marketing. How do you stand out from the crowd? And so my view is, and we'll talk about this in the panel session in a minute, is that you've got to take it one step further and actually look at the target executives, the actual people that you're selling to. Because at the end of the day, it isn't a company that buys your products. Yes, it's the company that pays for it, it's the company's contract, but it's actually an individual or a group of individuals who have a need that they need to fulfill in order to satisfy their job objectives, their own personal and professional goals, in order to do something on behalf of their company. So it's those executives. So the next phase is executive-based selling. How do you take the message to specific individuals? So you know the persona, that's kind of good, but it's a bit general. The next step is to go and take it to the specific executives. Now that requires marketing and sales to be working hand in hand in a way that marketing and sales, way back when we were still writing on chalkboards at school, were never really aligned. But today they have to be aligned, and we'll see in a second as we look at one of the examples how the alignment of sales and marketing actually enabled them to drive a really effective ABM campaign. So marketing and sales has to be aligned, because if it's about the marketing team doing an account-based marketing and layering on top the executive-based selling, well, it's in the words, it's in the titles, executive-based selling at the top, sales and account-based marketing working hand in hand. So here's an example. I've got 3 examples for you, which we'll whistle through very quickly. So here is a company called Datanyze. So they're a technographics provider, and they wanted to create awareness about their Marketo and HubSpot integrations. So the goal was to increase the company's net new opportunities. So they targeted marketers who worked at SaaS-based companies that were using Marketo and HubSpot. And so they segmented it into 2 groups, the groups that used Marketo and the groups that used HubSpot. And they sent different emails to them, different educational material relating to the choice they had already made about either HubSpot or Marketo. Seems sensible. Segment into different groups and be very specific about and tailoring the message to each of those 2 groups. So that is very much marketing at the account level. There was personalization at the account level, and the result was a 37% higher open rate than not using an ABM approach. So makes sense. And that's quite a simple approach. If you know what your target segment is, personalize the message around what you know your customer is using, that's going to help you to sell the relevant integration to them. The next case, really innovative, bit wacky, bit out there, but this was a company called GumGum. So they are a media company. They used the power of social media to get the attention of McDonald's. They created 100 burger kits and they personalized the receipts. So each of the receipts that were put inside these burger kits, physical things that were sent out, the receipts had the name of the target executive. So that's taking personalization to another level to make it kind of quite exciting. So you open up this, what is this, beefing up the Big Mac with computer vision box? So I open it up and I've got a receipt in there, it's got my name on it. And they amplified that through social media, utilizing an innovative way of looking at the Big Mac famous recipe and equating that to the technology that they actually were trying to put forwards. They amplified it through social, they tagged the executives on social, they tagged the media companies that were working with McDonald's. The end result, they secured the meeting with the target executive that had the budget, the authority, the need, the time frame that they could actually talk to. So they secured that meeting through this very personalized, targeted way of getting their attention, creating some kind of a desire and an interest in order to book that meeting. So the third example here is a company called Rollworks. So they used a multi-channel approach. And this was where the hand-in-hand approach between sales and marketing had to take place. The SDR team and the marketing team worked together on a number of ads, landing pages, and again, direct mailers. Direct mail isn't dead. It's a great way to be able to cut through some of the digital noise. So it's still very much a relevant thing to be able to use. So in this case, what they did is they took all the companies that hadn't progressed through the pipeline for 35 days, and they sent a direct mailer to them. And it was this over-the-line kit. And the over-the-line kit increased appointments from 2.6% to 10.2%. And the close rate went up to 41%. Plus, they managed to get a huge amount of exposure on social media by taking this kind of an approach. So very much focused at the companies that they segmented, that they knew they wanted to go after, that they knew they wanted to have as customers. But they did this to those that were at a particular stage in the funnel and used it to secure the meetings and then to drive the engagement. So, very quickly, I think that account-based marketing plus the executive-based selling is all about context. In marketing, you'll all know content is king. It's all about making sure you've got relevant content that's relevant with the value proposition to the customers or the prospects that you're trying to go after. And I think that is still relevant today, but actually it becomes very much more relevant what the context is. So we all live in a world, the macroeconomic environment. Who could have predicted a year ago that we would be in the situation that we're in right now? None of us predicted that. And we certainly didn't predict that it would go on for such a long time. The impact on the economy, all the other sorts of things that are happening, the downturn in retail, things like that that are happening, which affect everything else that's going on. So then you look at the industry that you want to target. That industry operates in the context of the macroeconomic environment. And then you target the sector within that industry that you want to position your products and services to. And then the accounts. And this is all the traditional ABM stuff. Know the accounts within the target sector, within the industry that are affected by the macroeconomic environment. And then finally, layer on the executive-based selling. Know who that executive is that you want to target with the message to make sure that you can have maximum impact. As we go forwards into the future, we have the advent and understanding of things like how the brain works. There's a real focus now on neuromarketing. That's, any brilliant copywriter will know that you write copy in a way that presses the buttons to get people to take action. The great calls to action that you have on the landing pages are all pressing those buttons in your target market for them to do something that you want them to do so that they engage with you. Well, that is neuromarketing. It just happens to be that lots of people have now coined this term in order to make it sound a little bit sexier than it is. And actually, it is really sexy. Neuromarketing is great. It's about understanding the human brain, how it operates. And there's now this area which is about neuro-selling. So you get the salespeople to really understand how to articulate the value and ensure that marketing and sales have got the single message that is the same. That's the hand-in-hand approach. Now, on the right-hand side here, you can see artificial intelligence, because in a world where there is so much data, I mean, there is no shortage of data. You just have to Google and you see a gazillion things come up on any topic that you want to know anything about. You don't know which is real. You don't know whether it's fake news. You don't know what bits of it are the bits that you can take to use. Well, the great thing is that there is now technology in the form of artificial intelligence that can help filter through the noise to give you the things that are absolutely relevant about the executive and about the context they work in, which is their company, and the context that that operates in within the industry and the macroeconomic environment, so that when you put your value proposition together, you can take the neuro-selling, the neuro-marketing pieces, understanding how your customers think and what they need and how they buy and what's value to them, and then filtering it with the information that's available, but allowing the artificial intelligence to make you more naturally and humanly intelligent about how you interact with your customer. So that is what I think is the marrying of account-based marketing with the executive-based selling. And as we evolve into the future, into the next 5 years, there's going to be much more use of this artificial intelligence technology with these other traditional approaches to marketing that are going to mean that we can all be much smarter, not only sell more just for the sake of selling more because we want to present more to the bottom line to our own companies, but we're going to sell more because our customers are going to be deeply engaged, deeply bought into what we're providing, because we truly understand what it is that's going to make them successful. So that's me, that's my whistle-stop tour. Those are my coordinates, my details, if you want to get in touch and find out anything more. And now I will hand back to the team.
Thank you so much, Ralph. That was a really good overview and a sound kind of insight into the journey that marketing's been on and is continuing to evolve into, and some really good examples as well of how account-based marketing has been used. Before we go to Carmen, I've just got one question actually that I'd like to ask you. The account-based marketing and the examples you gave are really solid, really great. And you talked about technology and the kind of increase in the use of AI. If you're a small to medium-sized business and you're stretched on resources and you don't have access to technologies and you don't have the skill set within your business to segment data and that sort of stuff, is ABM still achievable?
Well, you have to be able to do ABM and put ABM programs together. You have to be able to segment your customer base and who you're going after. So even if you're a small company, unless you are at the stage where you're so small you haven't got the resources, in which case you are in the situation of having to cast your net incredibly wide and just see who bites. Or in a net, just get caught in the net rather than biting the hook. But you know what I mean? I'm mixing my fishing analogies here. So if you're in that situation where you just haven't got the resources, you haven't got the money, you haven't got the people, then you don't really have much other choice. However, you're going to be having to spend money, if that is the case, on your pay-per-click campaign and other things besides. So you've got the option to spend that money, or some of it at least, on some technologies that exist. So I worked last year with a startup that is in the AI space, and for a very modest amount of money, it's a subscription, but it's a modest amount of money, you can effectively take a service which gives you really brilliant, not just insight, but intelligence. And I always say that, insight is knowing there's a challenge. Intelligence is knowing what the challenge is and what you're going to do to help them. And it's not for no reason that the Central Intelligence Agency is called the Central Intelligence Agency rather than the Central Insight Agency. So the intelligence bit is really critical. But that kind of thing is available even if you're a small company. But I would say you can't run ABM unless you are focusing in on the account. It's in the title, account-based marketing. You've got to segment. And if you want to elevate it to the executive-based selling, you need to actually invest the time, energy, money into knowing enough about that executive to work out what value means to them, because it's always about the value that they perceive, not the value that we think we're giving them. I think you're on mute.
Thank you so much. I am indeed. Thank you so much. We're going to invite you back a little bit later. But if anyone online has got any questions for Ralph, just put them into the chat, and then we'll direct them to Ralph at the end of the segment. So thank you very much for now. I'd like to invite Carmen, who is Senior Manager for Lead Generation at Unity Technologies. Hello, Carmen.
Hi, Jessica. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good.
It's early in the morning for you, I believe.
Not too bad. It's about 9:20.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us. So you're at Unity Technologies, and I understand that you've had quite a lot of success with the ABM approach, and so much so that you are actually going to expand the program this year. But to give everyone a bit of background, tell us what you did last year. What did you start with in terms of ABM?
Of course. Yeah. So account-based marketing really kicked off last year because there was a need to grow pipeline and revenue at a large scale, and at the same time deliver a high ROI, and all of this within a short time frame. So with this goal in mind, and with a lean team that we had back then, it allowed us to really use our resources more strategically and spend them on the accounts that matter the most, by driving marketing and sales generated revenue through those targeted activities. So the key for us was really to start small and then gradually expand our ABM program over time. So we first started ABM for our industrial verticals, and then expanded to our games vertical, and then our media entertainment verticals. With that said, we did utilize all three ABM approaches, but not all at once. So for the strategic or the one-to-one ABM program, which we really only reserve for a few of our top enterprise accounts, we just started this program back in November, actually, for one of our industrial verticals. And this year is when we're really going to truly expand into the games vertical this year. The right, or what we call the one to few, is where we focus on really lightly customized campaigns tailored towards that small groups of accounts. And lastly, the programmatic, or the one to many, where we primarily utilize this approach for SMB accounts where we use technology to tailor marketing campaigns. So I would say our most mature programs today are really the one to few and one to many. And the way that we structure our ABM programs is based on, potential average deal size. So the correlation of higher average deal size to the investment that we allocate towards the accounts.
What are some of the tactics that you used within the kind of one to few and one to many? Can you give any examples of the things that you did?
Yes, of course. So for the one to few, for example, we would really look not just into the firmographics, but look into the use cases and the challenges. What are the similarities of these hundreds of accounts of clusters that we can see? And what are the different products and solutions that we can actually offer to them? So to Ralph's point earlier, segmentation is really key for the accounts. Getting all of the data you could possibly have for each account helps in that segmentation. The second tactic is obviously alignment with sales. That I think is the biggest key to success, because at the end of the day, you want to be generating leads that sales will follow up on, so no lead gets left behind. And lastly, we want to make sure that we're truly aligned with product as well, because we want content that's relevant to the right audience or the right account at the right time. We want sales to be able to follow up on outreach efforts as well. And then the different channels that we use obviously stems from paid and non-paid. So we do have our email campaigns, we have our paid social, we have our display, content syndication. All of that really kind of comes together as the omni-channel approach.
So you mentioned that you started in the industrial sector, then you moved to gaming, then media, and you started small and kind of then expanding things. What are some of the biggest learnings you've had along the way, and how would you tweak things in your next program?
Of course. I think the biggest challenge, even to date, is really getting buy-in. And we continue, and it's really important to not only educate marketing and sales executives on the benefits of ABM, but as a data-driven marketer, as I like to call myself, I would like to be able to forecast the direct impact and upside for the bottom line of the business. So basically, when I'm generating these marketing qualified leads, how do these MQLs really translate to pipeline and revenue growth? And by doing so, that's how we're really able to defend how ABM complements how sales teams approach selling to their accounts. So that's one. The other one is really on lead follow-up, because we do have a lean team and we are just starting to grow this team, both on the marketing and the sales side. How do we ensure that all of our leads don't get left behind and that we're nurturing them the right way? And it's really understanding what tools we can use and really honing into investing into our marketing MarTech stack to basically understand what can we leverage to automate some of these processes as we start to scale with a lean team.
Perfect. And how did you go about sort of measuring the success of your programs? What were the key factors that you took into account?
Mm-hmm. There are two ways we measure success. One is the overarching goal of the entire ABM program across all the verticals, and two is from a campaign performance framework standpoint. So from the overarching goal, our main measures of success in order of prioritization are marketing source, pipeline, and revenue. That's really my biggest KPI. Next is the lead to opportunity conversion and volume of the high scoring marketing qualified leads. So what I mean by this is that the MQL scoring threshold has to be based on a certain lead grade. It's a combination of fit and engagement across all marketing channels. It's not necessarily about the quantity of the leads that you're giving sales to follow up on, the SDR team to follow up on, but rather the quality of those leads. Because at the end of the day, what you want to get out of these leads and out of these accounts are that high engagement, high average deal size that then translates to renewals and therefore high lifetime value.
So Ralph mentioned earlier the executive-based selling, and I guess that sort of plays into the quality-based leads. I see you're nodding there.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. What we're actually seeing is that nowadays you need to target the team and not just one person, because there has been cross-pollination of engagement, even across verticals and across job titles. So what we're seeing is not only do you actually target the executives, but you target their direct reports as well. So you have that kind of secondary decision maker along with the primary decision maker, and then you can sell, your whole kind of use case.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carmen. I'm going to invite Jessica onto the screen first of all, and then we'll come back to you and bring you all back on. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. So you are lead engineer at Salesforce.
Solution engineer, yes.
Solution engineer. So just tell us a little bit about what that entails.
So I work with a wide range of customers, for Salesforce customers on the B2B marketing side. So helping them realize their strategies, identify the solutions that will help them execute those strategies. And yeah, it's really exciting. I get to talk to people every day about things that everyone gets really excited about.
Amazing. Great to see such positivity. So tell us about kind of, you're obviously you're a champion of ABM. Tell us about the approach that you take when you work with your clients in media with regards to ABM.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we're hugely passionate about at Salesforce. We really think it's the way to go. I think, as Ralph mentioned previously, it's marketing done right. But we really think as well, it's not just a marketing strategy. It's, as other people have mentioned, it's a sales and marketing strategy, but it actually goes further. It goes across the whole business. So you want to be looking at your delivery teams, your service teams. Everybody should have this whole account focused approach, so that you're really working seamlessly across the business and that customer's getting a seamless experience. So all of those different kind of divisions work together to help achieve that. And it's something that we've seen a lot across all industries, but especially in media and in broadcast this year. Actually, speaking to a couple of different customers, what we've heard is that because a lot of, there might not be as much business right now, some organizations have had to hold back on spending. So the switch to ABM has been really focused this year, and organizations are really looking to grow those relationships at those accounts so that maybe next year when there's more budget available, they can make the most of that. So it's really proving to be a popular tactic in particular this year.
And are these broadcast companies seeing any results so far, or do you think that it's going to take some time before they see that return on investment?
I think at least in the organizations I've been speaking to, then they're not expecting to see that immediate impact this year, just because of the year there's no budget for those kinds of engagements. But they're seeing positive reactions, I guess. Their KPIs are being met, and hopefully that will ultimately, next year result in revenue as well. So it's exciting.
And what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've heard that some of your clients have had, particularly in the broadcast industry, when they're embedding this methodology into their strategy?
I think the first hurdle is that organizations often aren't really sure where to start. It sounds great. It's a great thing in practice. Everyone knows that we should be doing it, but it can be really challenging to kind of identify the first steps. And that's where we do recommend that tiered approach. So the first thing is really separating out your accounts into those top tiers. So who are the ones that you want to do the one-to-one marketing to? What's the next stage down where you're a bit more personalized? And then where at the next tier down, where are you doing that personalization at scale? So that's kind of the first step that people struggle with, and really just getting that cross team alignment. That's hugely important. And once you've got buy-in from those different divisions, that's when things really start to happen.
Brilliant. And are there any specific examples of how you've kind of helped overcome any of those kind of hurdles that broadcast companies have come across?
Yeah, so I think, well, the first thing is getting the right people in the room. So making sure that you have the right representatives across different teams. And then secondly, it's using the data that you have. We've kind of talked about this already this evening, but, looking at those accounts, identifying where the most potential is with regards to growing those accounts. And using the data to do that. And you might not have that data. You might have to do a little bit of guesswork in the beginning, or you might be lucky, you might already have that data and you can really analyze that and identify how to kind of separate out those accounts. So if you've got that data, make the most of it, because data is your friend.
Yeah, there's definitely, power in data, and it's becoming increasingly more important. And all of our panelists have mentioned it. I guess I'm hearing two things. There's the kind of importance of data, and then there's the kind of buy-in and the collaboration and alignment with sales as well. In terms of data, what's the biggest sort of piece of advice that you'd give an organisation to really, get their head around how to use data in an intelligent way?
Yeah, data is as useful as your data is, right? It can be so powerful, and there are so many insights that you can get from that data, but you need to make sure it's there. You need to make sure it's clean, and you need to make sure that everyone across the business, from people in sales and people in marketing, etc., are all seeing the same data. If you have data siloed, then that's going to present challenges. So it's really important to have that single source of truth, to make sure that you've got that master sitting in one place, and that you're making the most of that data, and you're making it easy to keep it clean and updated.
Thank you very much, Jess. I'm going to ask for Ralph and Carmen to come back onto the screen, and we can have a discussion amongst us. But if anyone's got any questions online, then just please put them into the chat, and we can ask those as well. So we've talked a lot about kind of the buy-in from your sales team, and I wondered if are we moving more from that kind of notion of selling to your sales team becoming sort of partnering with the marketing team and becoming more influencers in the market? Is that a direction that you think that we're going in? And I'll start with Carmen on that, if possible.
Yes, I would say absolutely. We used to, back then we used to bring sales in, whether, after the marketing campaign has launched, and then telling them, oh, we have leads coming from the accounts to follow up on. Now we're bringing them in from the get-go. What are your revenue goals? How much are we going to contribute to the revenue goals based on our own goals? And what accounts are we targeting, and who should we be really going after? Because at the end of the day, we have account intelligence from both sides, for marketing and sales. And to be able to bring that in the beginning will make the account even more engaged with us.
Ralph, what are your thoughts?
I would entirely agree. When marketing presents sales with leads, and let's say, for example, marketing runs a campaign, they put all of the leads into the leads section of Salesforce, assuming that company's using Salesforce. Mm-hmm. And then the sales team look at those and go, well, yeah, and I've worked, and consulted across many organizations where the salespeople just look at that and go, well, why would I? So it's when you've got it hand in hand, where you've got a campaign that's being run which has involved sales. So when I was running campaigns across Europe for Tata Communications, when I ran marketing and strategy for them, we would make sure that the sales team were part of the planning process, because it was critical that we understood who they wanted to talk to, and so then we could work out how we brought the right people into the room. When the marketing campaign, happened and it involved some face-to-face sort of activity or getting people in a room, I wanted to make sure that the people that were ultimately going to do the sale and needed to build the relationships were in the room building the relationships, and that I was facilitating that. And also, I want the salespeople out there advocating, what the service is. And actually, another really important part is the customer success team is actually probably the best marketing device organization that we have, because the more that they can get our customers to advocate, you know, that we're brilliant and that other customers should have us and use the services that we have, the better it is for us. So it's actually the marrying up of marketing, sales, and customer success in order to drive success for our customers and success to the bottom line to our own companies.
Yeah, Jess, you're nodding. Have you got any thoughts to add to that at all?
No, absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah, customer success is kind of the final stage, and that's the push to advocacy. You know, if you can make your customers your advocates, you've won. And yeah, it's super important to be aligned across those teams. Yeah.
So when you're recruiting for you know, for sales teams, are we now talking about a different skill set, a different mindset that we're looking for in sales professionals? You know, if you could start from, you know, what does your ideal salesperson look like, and what attributes would they have? And Carmen, I'll ask you that question. You know, if you're looking for a salesperson now who's, you know, 100% perfectly aligned, is able to embrace ABM, what do they need to have?
Yeah, I think the ideal salesperson would understand, you know, holistically what marketing does, to how does marketing, you know, contribute to sales revenue targets, and finally be able to understand what the accounts that we need to align on between marketing and sales. So by understanding their own territories, their own prioritization, how can marketing help them? And for them to be able to identify that and come into the meetings, come into the table with their ideas on how we can engage the account together, that would be the ideal salesperson to me.
And you mentioned that you know, one of the biggest challenges for your team was to get that buy-in from the sales team. What did you do to kind of overcome that with it? Did you hold sort of workshops with them? Was there training? How did you kind of get that buy-in from them?
Yeah, it was a collaboration between all of kind of growth marketing, which is my organization, as well as customer success. And also we had sales champions. So what that means is no matter how big or small your business is, we start with a pilot program. And this pilot program will help us identify what the forecast looks like if we were to scale ABM. So what that means is we had a champion from each of the different departments. Let's say we run small and maybe it's just a handful of accounts. We see what the upside is, what was the uplift from this pilot program. And then these champions then tell the whole team, this works, we should scale it. What does that look like times 100, times 1,000? And we're able to give them, you know, realistic numbers based on data that we had.
So the proof was in the pudding. Brilliant. Okay, I just want to move on and talk about artificial intelligence now. And Ralph, you brought this up in your presentation, and you know, you closed on that slide that artificial intelligence will be part of ABM, critical part of ABM in the future. How reliant do you think the future of ABM is on artificial intelligence?
Well, how reliant is it on AI now? Not that reliant, but I think as time progresses and as AI gets more sophisticated and actually the application of it gets driven towards helping marketing and the marketing effort do what it needs to do, why wouldn't we embrace it? You know, the opportunity for a computer, loads of computers, wherever they sit, somewhere in the cloud, based on algorithms, to sift through petabytes of information, to collate the most relevant pieces in real time, so that, you know, just imagine this scenario. You've got a customer that you're trying to get on the hook, right? A prospect, you're trying to turn them into a customer. You know who your 3 or 4 or 5 key decision makers are, or at least that group of people that you've got to influence to get them to understand the value and what you're trying to bring to them. And you get to understand or see fairly much in real time what's breaking in the news, and how that is, and it's not just a Google alert, it's how that's breaking in the news in the context, going back to the whole context is king piece, in the context of their organization, in the industry they operate in, within the macroeconomic environment. And if artificial intelligence can provide a mechanism for you to really understand what's going on in real time, you can use that to go to your customer contacts or your prospect contacts and actually talk to them about something that's really meaningful to them at the precise moment that it's meaningful to them. And how powerful, is that as a concept? So as computers and as AI and the algorithms and the machine learning and all those other sorts of things, get better and more sophisticated, and the cost of, applying it comes down, it's going to be something which I think is going to be tremendously powerful for marketing. So I think in time, it will just become part of the norm in the ABM arsenal.
Excellent. And Jess, what are your thoughts on AI, and are there any kind of examples you can give of ways that your clients or customers have been using AI in an effective way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think AI is the future. Data is getting more and more important, and the capability of AI is much more available to a lot more businesses now. And we're really seeing some interesting things being done, and it can be simple things like flagging accounts who are at danger of not renewing their contracts with you. The data can predict that and forewarn you, so you can get in there early. Identifying upsell and cross-sell opportunities. So, organizations that you might have further opportunities with that you hadn't considered. And just lots of really exciting things like that, and identifying target segments as well. That's a big one that we see a lot. Identifying segments that are particularly active, so let's target these people with our next campaign. So there's lots of exciting things happening, and I only see that growing further.
And Carmen, I know that you guys have, you started small with the use of AI, and you introduced things like chat boxes. I mean, I'm sure you'll agree as well that AI is critical. But what are some of the other ways that you've seen success with the use of AI?
Mm-hmm. There's two ways we've seen it, because we are also investing even more in AI-driven capabilities. It has enabled us to not just automate optimization within our campaigns and programs at scale, but especially from an account perspective, it's not just about predicting what our buyer's intent is or where they are in the journey and what their next move is, but really even prioritize within these signals and predictions so that we're really able to hone in on their immediate need and solve their most critical problem. So that, I think, what we're trying to pivot on is really even deeper into the signals that we're getting today.
Excellent. Okay, so I want to move on to kind of what the future holds, and AI is a big part of that. But where do you see, in 5 years' time, where do you see ABM and it's kind of how it's embedded within businesses? And you've all mentioned that actually it's probably just means that you're doing good marketing if you've got an ABM strategy. But kind of if companies are sort of grappling with that concept, how would you kind of articulate to them what ABM will look like in 5 years' time and how important it is? Ralph, we can go to you.
Well, again, it's going to depend on the size and the stage of the organization, and also what segment they're going after. But let's assume that it's B2B and that you've got a reasonable marketing organization and budget, and you know who you're going after. I would say that it should be the foundation of absolutely every single bit of marketing and bit of selling that you do. It just becomes the norm. And then it's a question of layering on top of it the way in which you engage with and demonstrate the value to the people who are the ones making the decision to procure whatever it is that you're providing. And it's still going to be fun, because we saw in the examples, like the McDonald's example, that was a slightly way out and wacky way of doing some sort of personalizing and targeting an organization in a way that really grabbed attention and achieved the end result. So while I think organizations are going to be just doing this as standard marketing, it's the way that you decide who you're going to target and how you're going to talk to them and the tone of voice and who what the value is and all of that kind of stuff. You've got that fun piece on top which says, but how are we going to put that in motion in a way that differentiates us? So it becomes the standard platform, and then you apply your personality of your company and the way in which you want to present your brand as to what those campaigns look like. And that becomes then a differentiator as you kind of humanize business. It becomes human to human contact with ABM as the layer that supports everything you do.
Mm. And Carmen, what are your thoughts on that?
I think for just to kind of build on what Ralph was saying, it's also understanding how we can focus on the near term. Given the uncertainty in the world today, we're trying to focus now not just on the 90-day or 12-month use case, but what is your 7, 14 days, 30 days to tangibly really show the account what you can do for them, given that people can't even sign off on a particular budget right now for any point in time in the future, potentially. So that's what we're trying to figure out is how do we get that tangible use case, and then that will translate into even more agile marketing. So that's how I see kind of ABM develop in the future, is using as much real-time data as you can to inform your campaigns and being able to pivot and optimize as soon as you can. Yeah,
and Jess, connected to that, how as we kind of go deeper and deeper, how deep can personalization really go? When you're kind of looking at in real time that this person is doing that and we need to basically connect with them, and that's quality. How deep can that personalization go?
It can go really, really deep. The data that can be tracked now on people's personalizations, on the way that they typically browse. Are they engaging with you on their mobile device? Are they on a browser, on their website, on their desktop? What time do they typically engage? And all those kind of predictive, customers who recently bought this product were also interested in this product, that kind of thing. All of those predictions are just getting smarter and smarter. So it really will be such a personalized journey for each individual, as well as at that account as a whole. And that's only going to get stronger.
And like Ralph said, perhaps we can bring more fun into it because it is so personalized. There is an element of fun and joy in what people receive and engage with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just a couple of more questions. And again, if you've got any questions online, then please do ask them now. Now's the time. But I just want to ask sort of from a technology point of view, what are the critical things that you think are necessary in your tech stack for an ABM strategy? Ralph, have you got any thoughts on that in terms of, what are the key tools that you need?
Well, there's a difference between what are the key tools you need and what are the key tools you might want. There are so many different tools that are available that do many amazing things. New tools that are coming onto the market that enable you to understand and track the way in which your buyers are buying, the intent data, who's clicked on what at what time. So I mean, as a fundamental, you need to be able to have a really good CRM system, which is going to enable you to track the way that your customers and prospects are engaging with your content, with your website, with your emails. You would want to have the ability to personalize the messaging, which is going out from a marketing automation perspective as well. You want to layer into that the data and the intelligence that's coming from that data. So, I mean, the thing is that, I could say right now, okay, well, the 5 or the 6 different tools that you need are these, and I'll be out of date within 3 months because, well, some of them will still be around and will still be the cool kids on the block that are doing the best things. There'll be other things that are coming along. So it's a really hard one to answer, but you need to make sure that the fundamentals are there and then layer on the tool sets that are going to enable you to do the things that you want to or need to do for the specific use cases and campaign types that you're trying to run.
How do marketing professionals kind of stay on top of what are the latest tools and technologies out there? Do you usually, I mean, I'll ask you, Carmen, do you go to any forums or are you just sort of reading things all the time? What's your kind of source for knowing what the latest tech is?
Yes, I usually follow a lot of influencers on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. Definitely virtual events. It's also important for a lot of ABM professionals to, if you've seen like ABM certifications, expert ABM certifications, to continue to do so. Also, of course, the MarTech landscape that every year continues to grow, that visual infographic. So we tend to look at that as well. But otherwise, what's really important is to kind of build your network, especially in LinkedIn. People will actually approach you and say, here's actually a company I just started working on. And these are companies that, larger companies may even acquire at the end of the day. So it's important to really kind of have an open line of communication with small or bigger companies to see what can be integrated within your MarTech stack.
Yeah, brilliant. And Jess, the same sort of question for you, I guess, is, how are you connecting with your customers at the moment, in particularly where we're living in a virtual world, where are you getting your information from, and how you staying connected?
Yeah, I mean, same for me. I've always been involved in lots of different groups and networking, and it's been super valuable for me. And from a customer perspective, we're trialing different approaches. We're trialing our own account-based approaches as well that have had, really good success. So I don't know how familiar you are with Dreamforce, which is our big annual conference that we usually hold in San Francisco every year, which sadly we couldn't hold last year. And we actually turned that into an account bespoke event for each of our top accounts, and we called it Dreamforce to You, and we held virtual events for each account tailored to their specific needs, and it was really great to have that connection with them at that level. So I definitely think there are ways to continue. You just have to pivot and be flexible.
Perfect. And I've got one more question for you each before we come to a close. So if you could give one sort of bit of advice, what would be the 3 kind of ingredients that you'd advise anyone to have as part of their ABM strategy going forward? Ralph, let's come to you first. What's your top tip for everyone who's watching?
My top tip is to define value in the terms that your customer would perceive value. And it's not that easy to do. Everybody talks about value propositions, and value propositions that you read are often very much centered around features and benefits as perceived by the company that's selling what they do, rather than really looking at the customer, the person that's buying it, the context they're in, and then defining what is value to that individual within the context of their company. And if you can really nail that, it makes the conversation like a hot knife through butter. It just makes it so much easier to be able to drive a positive relationship and drive towards actually delivering that value and securing the sale.
Excellent, thank you. And Jess, what's your top bit of advice for people?
Yeah, I think make sure you've got that cross-business buy-in, as we mentioned earlier, and make sure that you're tracking the results that you get on that. Are you attributing your results to the correct campaigns? And are you calculating that ROI so you can prove that what's working and what isn't, and know where to invest next year?
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Carmen, what's your advice?
Of course. The biggest piece of advice I can give is really tight partnership and alignment with sales and product. Getting sales and marketing working as one team is the real secret to success, and to have that clear line of communication, and really to build on what Jessica was saying before launching any campaign. Make sure that you have end-to-end tracking in place, because that ensures that you're able to show whether it's executive stakeholders or sales or marketing leadership, marketing's direct or influenced impact to revenue. And it will be very critical for teams to pivot and optimize with that data in an agile way in the future.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much to all of you. It's been fascinating, and I've learned a lot. And I expect people online watching have also got some great insight from you guys. So thank you so much for spending time with us this evening to go through, how you've used and applied ABM and what you predict the future of ABM to be. Yeah, thank you guys, and for everyone watching at home, thank you very much. Please sign up to mlcircle.com to become a member, and we will see you very soon at the next event. Thank you very much.